Great. I can see there's still some people coming in, so I might just kick things off just in the interest of time. We love our half-hour webinars here at Carbonmark, so thank you so much for everyone who's already in the audience today. Yeah, thanks for joining. And we typically do these webinars on bite-sized half-hour chunks. So yeah, the flow today is really going to be probably about 15 or 20 minutes in the presentation material. Then we like to keep time for Q&A as well. And yeah, encourage you to ask any questions either in the session or to follow up afterwards as well. So with that, I'll get into the agenda today, which is really, the key topic that we're going to be talking about here is demystifying digital carbon. So what is digital carbon, and what are some of the developments there? So the agenda for today is we're going to do a quick introduction on Carbonmark, our organization, what we do, what our mission is, where our focus is. Then we're going to do a bit of a primer on digital carbon as well. So explaining what digital carbon is, its benefits, why we're investing time and resources into developing digital carbon and proliferating it into the marketplace as well. And also we're going to be touching upon the latest developments in digital carbon. So some of the new updates that we're going to market with and the benefits that they provide. So specifically how the Carbonmark platform that we're developing, brings these benefits and developments from digital carbon into your organizations and to help the planet, really. So before we get into the specifics of digital carbon, I wanted to introduce Carbonmark for those who are maybe not familiar with us or who are just learning about Carbonmark. So we see ourselves, and our mission really is to bring innovation to climate solutions, and we see ourselves as the most innovative provider of climate solutions on the planet. So really where we differentiate there is in the digital solutions side. So, we bring projects to market in the area of CO2, mitigation and removal. We also finance project developments. And really where we are building from a tech perspective to enable a lot of this is in the digital solutions space. And digital carbon is one of those areas that we'll go a bit more into detail with today. So what is digital carbon? So simply put, it's carbon that is built on public blockchain. It's essentially a carbon market that's built on public blockchain technologies. So the representation of a carbon credit is put on a distributed public ledger in the public domain, as opposed to a traditional carbon registry database. And the benefits of doing this is that you provide greater transparency. It goes into the public domain, and the way that the data integrity is maintained on a public ledger is such that it becomes immutable in the sense that it becomes a permanent record, and that data is always going to be available based on how the data structure is set up to underpin that. It also allows for greater automation. So one of the key challenges in addressing climate change is scaling the positive mechanisms for incentivizing decarbonization. So what we mean by that specifically is building carbon removal and mitigation systems at scale that embed themselves into all of the points in operations in society where there are emissions as well. So, an example of an automation that digital carbon enables, and we've got some case studies around this as well, is in a logistics use case, for example, there'll be shipping containers that are being sent by like a freight forwarder, for instance, and we know the emissions associated with each shipping container. We know the ID, so we can, in the transaction system of the organization, we can tie carbon removals and mitigations in real time to that accounting system and to that software system as well. So you have a system that intuitively understands precisely what the emissions that are occurring, and it can essentially direct the financing in real time to the projects that are offsetting those emissions as well. And then the third part is an interesting word called interoperability. And really what this means is that leveraging public distributed ledger technology, we're also building upon an open source standardized framework, which allows application developers from, with any type of implementation to build on top of it permissionlessly. So in the same way that we have seen internet protocols in the past develop, such as with email and websites and things like that, what's being developed here is building upon evolving internet protocols that we think will serve as the backbone to the future of essentially the solution to climate change as well, enabled by this digital technology. So that's really what digital carbon is in a nutshell. It's a different way of accounting for carbon and embedding it more deeply into society. So now we've done a bit of a primer on what digital carbon is. I want to focus this webinar on some of the latest developments in digital carbon and how we are specifically leveraging this technology stack to bring new types of capabilities to the climate solutions market and really advance the state of the art forward so we can create more impact for organizations who are collectively driving to decarbonize the planet from an emissions perspective. So the three developments that I want to focus on today is the ability to access what we call forward credits. And I'll speak to more about what these are and the benefits of accessing forward credits. I also want to talk about digital carbon registries and why this is bringing the state of the art forward in the industry. And I also want to talk about some of the ways in which Carbonmark is driving innovation in cutting-edge carbon removal projects as well. So these are the 3 points we're going to touch upon in today's webinar, as well as some of the unique selling points of sourcing through Carbonmark as well. So accessing forward credits. So what a forward credit is it's essentially, the technical term is ex ante, but essentially what it means is that you take a position in a carbon project before it has issued carbon mitigation or removal credits. So essentially it allows, rather than, I guess, harvesting or purchasing the economic benefits, after the benefit has occurred from a project, it's the typical practice of, carbon credit purchasing, what we would call on the spot market. Carbon forwarding allows you to take a position in the project as it's developing. So it really puts you into a deeper investment position in the project. So, you're essentially financing the project and helping the project developer in terms of managing the risks along the development cycle of the project. And then that position that you take in the project, obviously it will yield carbon credits or in the form of mitigations or removal credits once the project has reached a completion point where credits are issued upon some schedule. So this is, we're really excited about this because it allows you to go deeper into the project financing component and essentially develop. And we're partnering with organizations who are developing a more liquid market. And ultimately, what this enables is a greater spread of risk for the project developers, which ultimately makes the calculus easier for projects in the environmental space to get off the ground. So we think that by expanding the market for forward credits, we're also incentivizing more projects that are producing a positive climate impact and driving innovation in the space as well. So there are some logos on the right there, Solid World, ICR, and that sort of infinity looking sign there, which is C3. And why I wanted to mention these technology providers is that These are some building blocks that we're building on top of the work of. SolidWorld is producing access to essentially the ability to take forward positions in a lot of mangrove restoration projects. So we're supporting SolidWorld on that endeavor and integrating it into the Carbonmark marketplace, where you're able to really more easily access these types of instruments. ICR is on there as well, short for International Carbon Registry. They are a provider of forward carbon for a number of forestry projects, which are going in. And then we've also got C3, who are going very, very innovative and are producing a marketplace for forward technology removal projects as well. And we're going to go into a bit more detail there in the presentation today as well. So a number of different ranges of projects, from what we call blue carbon, mangrove restoration project forwards, forestry forwards, where that it's critical to the success of a lot of those projects from a de-risking perspective. And then we go very far into the bleeding edge innovation with C3, and we'll touch upon one of the projects that is being in early development with them as well, and how we cross over the forward credits, the digital carbon registry component, and some of the bleeding edge innovation that's happening as well in the carbon removal space as well, all within what C3 is doing at the moment. So we'll get to see more about that in the webinar as well. So just moving along to the next point here, which is digital carbon registries. And this can get into quite a technical area, but today I want to keep it quite high level in terms of what a digital carbon registry actually is. So what a digital carbon registry is we really focus, it's a registry where we put a lot more emphasis on the monitoring, reporting, and verification of the project. Not just to ensure that the methodology that's been implemented is sound and has passed a number of credible verification processes, but to actually bring the investor in the project, the person who is essentially accessing the environmental benefits of the project, much closer to the everyday operations of the project. So this could mean, in the instance of a forestry project, real-time satellite monitoring of the area in which the forestry project is being implemented. As we'll see later in this presentation, in the instance of a tech removal project, we'll get to see into the actual operational components of PLC equipment within the operations of the project as well. And what the digital carbon registry allows is, obviously, it supports a liquid marketplace for forward carbon, but also for the carbon credits that have been derived from the project. We have this real-time adaptive, what we call MRV, monitoring, reporting, verification data feed into the asset, so that it can be evaluated and looked at in real time. So this we take a number of different data sources as a part of the MRV process, and that's linked in real time to the actual digital carbon registry itself. That's really what digital carbon registries are. And then as the credits are essentially being produced, they derive all of the benefits that we touched upon in the beginning of the webinar around the transparency, interoperability, and automation capabilities of the digital carbon itself. And this is a trend that's really interesting that we're seeing, where the market is realizing that the ISO and verification process is, in terms of verifying methodologies, that's really where a lot of the focus should be, and on the data around that process as well. So this is where we're starting to see really a boom in the innovation that's coming out of the registry space as well. And the whole market is getting much, much closer to the day-to-day operations of the project in real time. So this is something that is coming online thanks to digital carbon. Okay, so now we're going into some of the areas that we're really supporting the development of the state of art within the carbon removal space specifically. And I want to talk about this specific project that is getting a lot of attention in our community, and there's a lot of interest in really scaling this technology out. And this is what Limenet is doing is essentially leveraging the largest carbon sink that we have on planet Earth, which is the ocean, and they're using a way of refining limestone to actually use the ocean to better absorb carbon in a way that can really enhance, a lot of the, in a way that essentially stores the carbon for over 10,000 years. That isn't invasive to the flora and fauna in any way, and could scale dramatically. So this is a project that we're going very deep into. This is one that's being supported by the C3 registry, and that has tradable forwards coming online. And one of the things that I want to highlight with the Limenet carbon capture and removal project as well is that the DMRV component that comes with this is incredibly extensive, in the sense that the area in which the processed limestone is being generated, the actual machines doing the processing, and all of the PLC equipment is streaming data through the DMRV system into the Digital Carbon Registry. So we can combine a number of different data points and data streams to actually monitor in real time the productivity of the project, and also the environmental benefits coming from the project as well. So this is one that is getting a lot of attention, and that we think by leaning into this level of bleeding edge innovation, we can really move the entire sector forward in terms of new ways of decarbonizing the planet. So finally, I want to because I want to have some time for Q&A as well, but I just want to touch upon some of the Carbonmark benefits that exist on the actual front end, and leaning into some of our digital solutions as well. So there are really three areas that Carbonmark stands apart as a marketplace for digital carbon. The first is a web API that we have. So this allows seamless integration via common web tools to actually integrate into line of business applications. So for instance, whether it be e-commerce, shipping and logistics, point of sale, anything where events, anything where there are specific transactions happening at a business operation level, we can essentially tie transactions specifically to those emission events and provide real-time offsetting and removal for those events, for those specific transactions. So that's something that we have with the web API. We offer instant settlement with, we accept all sorts of payment methods and provide instant settlement. And we also are going deeper into the ERP solutions as well, as we see logistics solutions becoming more and more important as part of operationalizing, whether it be, net zero strategies that rely on scope 3 emissions. We're seeing more of an emphasis on accounting and automating and providing carbon solutions across the supply chain as well. This is a little bit more details into how the Carbonmark API works. Open to discuss more about this as well, but it allows you to integrate into your line of business application sourcing in an automated way, and provides simple integration with common web tools. And then on the front end, it's really as simple as creating an account with us. You can search for projects, and you can retire with the click of a button and immediately receive a retirement certificate. And all of that is traceable using digital carbon. And then probably the final point as well is, we're really more about building long-term relationships, people who share our passion for innovation. So, we'd love to learn about how you're implementing Carbonmark solutions into your line of business as well. And we have a dedicated marketing and content team to actually support sharing your message and passion for innovation in the climate technology sector. So, you know, encourage you to reach out. If you have implemented any of our solutions, we would love to get behind supporting, you know, and sharing what you've achieved using Carbonmark technologies. So there's a bit of a plug here about contacting us, my email, but I'll also just jump over to the Q&A slide. I know that I've run pretty much exactly on 20 minutes, which is great. It gives us some time for Q&A. So yeah, I guess with that, I'll just pause. I know we've gone through a lot. You might have some questions, but we've also got Drew joining us here as well. He's our head of carbon markets and strategic partnerships. So he can go really deep into, you know, specific methodology questions and specifics on the climate, on the environmental asset side as well. So a lot of talking from me, but we've got 10 minutes, so hopefully we don't feel too rushed going into the Q&A. But I guess I'll just pause there and open the floor to any questions that you might have for myself or Drew around any of the material that we've been presented, or any tangential questions that you might have specific to Carbonmark.
I think there was a question earlier about the types of projects that we can expect, and this has been a theme of each webinar, I believe, just in that the diversity of on-chain supply has continued to increase, and especially when you start to look at the ex-ante opportunities where you can actually forward buy carbon credits. That's something we're really excited about, because the ICR registry, for one, is coming online. I can tell you that there's one other major carbon registry that is finalizing some of the technology around bridging its credits to the blockchain, where, you know, ex-ante credits will also be available. And then finally, Liam, as you mentioned earlier in this webinar, we also have that opportunity with Limenet in similar carbon capture and storage projects, where the credits themselves are actually going to be issued directly onto the public blockchain where we operate, which is the Polygon chain. So those types of projects are going to be becoming available as well. And that'll help round things out, because currently, you know, there's primarily mitigation type offsets that are on chain, and increasingly we're going to have more of those carbon removal type offsets, whether it's from technologically based removals like the Limenet project, or a nature-based project such as afforestation that's also removing carbon in that way.
Yeah, great point, Drew, in terms of, yeah, a great diversity of credits coming on, both ex-ante, ex-post, nature-based, technology-based, and different variants of technology-based removals as well. So it's great to see everything moving in the direction of digitization and greater integration with DMRV methodologies as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the DMRV front, this is something that can expand, you know, to different types of standards. We know that there are some, such as ICR again, where, you know, they're taking the classic route of having verification cycles done every few years, or you know, potentially every few months, and then issuing credits. But they're also looking at ways of just having data from the field integrated in a live fashion directly to the blockchain, on the status and the integrity of the projects, so that those credits just can be issued in a more streaming basis, rather than, let's say, in blocks every few years, as is done currently. But beyond that, this type of data augmentation is good, just to be able to have more information about the integrity of the projects. You know, being able to live stream in data from satellite remote sensing sources on, you know, forestry projects, to understand how are the changes in biomass occurring. Are there any types of forest fires that have occurred? And, you know, could those threaten buffer pools that exist for these projects when it comes to the credits issued? So this is really important, and we're definitely positioning Carbonmark to be able to take in all of that data and have it available to buyers or to the holders of these credits, so that, again, we have a bit more about transparency about what's going on.
Thanks, Drew. Great points. Great points. I think DMRV and the actual digital registries are going to be, yeah, I think it's just a game changer, and I think it just brings the organizations who are really accessing the environmental benefits and investing in these projects, it's going to bring them much closer to the fundamentals of the project and really help them, internalize their own business operations with that of the project. So it's fantastic to see. Well, I know we've got about 4 minutes left. I guess this is sort of I'd love to give everyone some time back. Like I said, we try to make these webinars more frequent and more bite-sized, just to help inform and keep everyone up to date. So we'd love to give back a few minutes of time if there aren't any other questions in the next couple of minutes. Oh, we've just got a question come in.
Yes, this is about acquiring carbon offsets and what follows from that. Well, the key piece or the key process when you're actually claiming the environmental benefit of an offset is called retirement. And so that's something that we do facilitate on our platform. When you retire an offset, what's really important is that that asset can no longer be traded to other players, meaning that the environmental benefit can only be claimed by one person or one organization. And that's to prevent double counting, essentially, of the offsets. And you can think of it as just consuming the offset itself. So that process, if you purchase a digital carbon asset through Carbonmark, you have that. You can choose to retire that immediately, or perhaps you want to hold that asset and retire it, maybe 10 tons on a monthly basis. However you'd like to do that, we have the functionality there for you. And when you do make that carbon retirement, you will have access to certificates that actually show what has occurred on the blockchain to make that happen. You can put your beneficiary info there. You'll have information about the specific project that you've utilized, including the methodology and the vintage and so on. So that's how that process actually works. And I think what will be unique about some of these DMRE technologies that we've talked about is that you're going to be getting closer to the project in a sense that from your certificate, you might be able to include information on, let's say, the last biomass assessment that actually happened from a remote sensing platform. That's where we're starting to move in the industry. And again, it's the blockchain piece, it's the interesting DMRB technology, and it's linking all these components together that are going to make that vision a reality.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. See, do we have any others that have come in?
Right. Well, I think with that, what we'll do is give the folks maybe a couple of minutes back, 1 minute back. Very efficient this webinar. So, but my details are up on screen at the moment in terms of that link. I'll be sending a follow-up email as well, and we do have a newsletter. So, if you have registered to the webinar today, we will send you an opt-in at a certain point, in terms of just supply updates as new projects come online. I know that there were some questions around, accessing and things like that. All of the steps and guides will be put through as we get more supply up. And, if you have any questions at all, please just reach out. I'm always happy to have a friendly 15-minute chat. If there's any questions, please let me know. This is a very new area. Very innovative things that we're doing. So it's okay if it doesn't, all make sense. We're here to explain and also educate is a big part of what we're about here at Carbonmark. Great. I think with that, we can close off the webinar. I think we're at 1:30. So thank you everyone who have joined, and thank you for everyone who is listening to the recording. We look forward to hearing from you, and until next webinar, take care.
Thanks, everybody.